Okay, so we have a right triangle. And so we're going to dissect the anatomy of a right triangle. So in our video, the two sides that form the right angle, these two right here, they gave them a name. The legs. That's the easier part to remember. And this longest side, that literally we find by going to the right angle and just looking opposite that right angle, that's called the, anyone remember? Hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. In Spanish, they call it hipotenusa. So we have those. So let's say we label them. A for one leg, B for the other, and C for the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always going to be C. So the longest side should always be C. So here is the Pythagorean theorem. In a right triangle with legs A and B, and hypotenuse C, okay, so that's just kind of setting up the main part that we want in a right triangle. So the main thing we want to emphasize here is that we have a right triangle. And I'm just so we can all follow along, I'm just calling the legs A and B and the hypotenuse C. Then we get A squared plus B squared equals C squared. That's the big payout. This is the phenomenon that's always going to be true for the sides of right triangle. And that's basically the Pythagorean theorem. So this mathematical fact about right triangles allows us to figure out basically the sides of right triangles, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to find the missing side of the right triangle. Notice what we said though. It has to be a right triangle. I can't just find the missing side of any old triangle. It has to be a right triangle. It is possible to use this Pythagorean theorem in a little more if we know some trigonometry. And you'll learn that in geometry class and in algebra 2. How to find missing sides of any old triangle, but you're also going to have to know something about the angles besides the right angle. But that's later on. Right now, let's just do this. Let's just say we have a right triangle. Let me draw a right triangle. Here's my right triangle. And let's say this is 12 inches, 9 inches. We don't know that side. Okay? So let's start with that. Draw a right triangle. We'll say these two sides are 12 and 9. This other side we don't know. Okay, let's write down our Pythagorean theorem formula. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Let's label our sides. Which side is going to be A? 12. Doesn't matter. If you like 12 for it, the only side that it can't be is, yeah. Usually what I do is I do this. I label where C is first. C, I have to know because that one has to be a specific one. So C is the one we don't know. So you can call one of them A. I'll call A the one that's 12 and B the one that's 9. Those are both legs. And let's plug in our numbers for the ones we do know. So we have 12 squared plus 9 squared equals c squared. Okay? So let's see here. This is 12 squared, that's what, 144? Plus 9 squared, which is 81, equals c squared. So let's just add 81 and 144. What do we get? 225? So we get 225 equals c squared, but we don't want c squared, we want c. So we want to undo the squaring. We want the opposite of squaring something. Square root. So we want the square root of 225. 15. If you're not sure, 225, here's the square root button, it's 15. And so C is 15. Inches in this case. All right. So let's try another one. What if we do another right triangle? Let's say we have 2.3 feet and 5.1 feet. And we want to find the missing side again. Well, is our missing side C? What do you think? Yes. So you can call one A. I'll call this one A and this one B. And we'll do the same thing. So let's set it up. I'd like you to set that up. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So what am I going to do? So A is 2.3, so this would be 0.3 squared. B is 5.1, so this would be 5.1 squared equals C squared. All right. So why don't we figure those out? So in your calculator, do 2.3 squared. How much is that? What are we going to get there? 5.29. Okay. And 5.1, let's square that. Okay. So that's what we get now. We got to add up our values, and that's what, 31.3? Is c squared, and we don't want c squared, so let's square root it. So on our calculator, 31.3, let's get the square root of that. 31.3, square root that. Let's round it to the nearest tenth, one decimal place.
5.6.
5.6. So C is 5.6 feet. Okay. All right. So that's finding the hypotenuse, the longest side. Let's practice finding a leg now. It'll be a little different, just a little bit. But that's not too hard, is it? Pretty easy, right? Okay. Almost there. Okay. So let's do this. Number 3. Let's do a right triangle. Here's my right triangle. Let's say this is 13 inches and 12 inches. This side, we don't know. Okay, which side has to be C? 13. Very good. That's your first job. Always look at your right triangle if they give you a picture and say, okay, C has to be the longest side, so it has to be 13. The other side, which one should be A, the unknown or the 12? Okay. So B is the one we don't know. Okay? All right. But what we also do know is A squared plus B squared equals C squared, because we have a right triangle. And just like with any formula, put in the numbers you know. So I know A is 12, so 12 squared plus, I don't know B, so I'll leave it as B squared, equals C is 13, so 13 squared. Okay? And so now let's just work this out. So 12 squared is 144 plus B squared equals 169. Okay. So I can't add 144 with B squared. What can I do? Subtract away the 144. Yeah. It's just solving a very simple equation. So in that case, it leaves B squared all by its lonesome. And 169 minus 144 is 25. Oh, that works out nicely, because next thing I have to do is square root to make B squared B. So B is actually 5 inches in this case. All right. So if you have to figure out a leg, the only difference is you'll have to do a little subtraction. So we'll do one last problem, and then we'll be done. Okay, you guys ready? Number 4. Another right triangle. Let's see. All right. So say I give you this. It's an isosceles right triangle. You know what isosceles means? 2 sides are equal. Yes.
6.
6 squared plus 6 squared equals.
Yeah. That means this is 6, so we're going to figure out C again. Okay. So back to A squared plus B squared equals C squared, which in this case is 6 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. So it's 36 plus 36.
72.
So 72. So we have to figure out the square root of 72.
8.
8.5. Well, let's see. 72 square root rounded is 0.5. Okay. So we've gone over how to find missing sides, whether it's a hypotenuse or a leg. And so that's what we're going to be doing on today's assignment, okay? And it's on Delta Math. All right. So if you have any questions, let me know.